Alright guys, Murph's here, and today I want to talk about this. A Remington model 870 Wingmaster chambered in 16 gauge. Now in order to talk about this shotgun, we're going to talk about a little bit of history to start. Now, during the 1940s, Remington had a lot of very lucrative Army contracts producing specifically Springfield Model 1903s for the Army. And during that time, they actually came up with a couple of production refinements for the Springfield Model 1903 that eventually culminated into the 1903 A3, which would see wide use during World War II. Now, post World War II, Remington would be looking for opportunities in order to be lucrative in the civilian market now that the military contracts have pretty much dried up. And what they decided to do was to take a look at their product line and see if they could utilize some of the refinements that they came across during World War II on some of their civilian offerings. So what they wound up doing was taking a look at their Remington Model 31, which I have an example of right here, also chambered in 16 gauge. Let's take a look at the Model 31, which was kind of their flagship pump-action shotgun at the time. And though an excellent shotgun and competitive with the Winchester Model 12, both of those shotguns suffered from the same issue of being kind of complicated and costly for production. The Remington Model 31 has a lot of little parts, a lot of fine machining, all that type of stuff. And they decided that they could put together something just as good utilizing cheaper manufacturing processes, which is how we get the 870. Now, in 1950, they would unveil the 870, and it would be an immediate commercial success, primarily because it is an excellently designed shotgun, reliable, all those types of things, and costs less than the competitive Winchester Model 12. Now, they would initially unveil these in 12, 16, and 20 gauge, and later on a 410 chambering would come as well. Now, development of this shotgun also had Remington taking a long look at the Remington Model 1148, which is where they actually got the overall receiver layout. And the idea was to be able to make it fairly simple, refine the production process, and have both receivers start out from the same base, and then an additional milling operation would be done to the rear of the ejection port for the 1148 to make space for the charging handle. All right, now, these shotguns would see a lot of popularity, not just on the trap and skeet line, but also in field with hunters as well as with police. And there's quite a few different variants of this particular shotgun that have been developed over the years. Over 10 million of these shotguns have been produced. And you can find limited edition like Dale Earnhardt models. There is a ton of different type of like riot gun or police home defense type shotguns. You can get them with 28, 26, every barrel length that you can imagine, all the way down to 18 and shorter. There are manufacturers that have made their entire business out of creating SBS versions of the Remington Model 870. Now, actually, and just to kind of continue with the whole other models type thing, the Remington 870 was also produced in a Mariner type model, which uses a lot of coatings and stuff like that that are resistant to water. And that most notably can be seen in the movie Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Fantastic movie. You guys haven't ever seen it. But fantastic in the sense of it's a really easy viewing, like shoot 'em up type thing. But, you know, not fantastic because it's like great acting or anything along those lines. But I digress. Anyway. Now, other advancements would come along with this shotgun. Initially, this would be built in a 2 3/4 inch chamber. However, a 3-inch chamber would be offered shortly thereafter, and then eventually 3.5-inch chambers. Now, in 1987, a refined version of, I shouldn't say refined, a simplified version of the Remington Model 870 was produced, known as the 870 Express, of which I have an example right here. And these are found with a lot of the same options. However, there are a couple of feature differences between this and the Wingmaster, and we'll get into that more once we get to features. All right. I think that pretty much covers history, guys. 870s are kind of boring in the history department because they kind of just work and they just kind of exist and all that kind of stuff. But they are excellent shotguns. Let's go ahead and go down the features of this particular shotgun. Now, right off the bat, this is a 1973 produced Remington Model 870. We have a 28-inch barrel. And really, with the age of this shotgun, this is a fairly lightweight barrel. It does utilize fixed chokes. This one is specifically a full choke. However, later on, once rem choke became a thing, internally threaded choke tubes for the Remington model shotguns became a thing, you would start seeing thicker barrels. There have been some more recent production guns that have a little bit lighter profile barrel, but this is a fairly lightweight, fast handling little shotgun. We'll talk about that more once we get to shooting. Now you'll see here at the end we have a singular bead at the end of the muzzle. This is my preferred whenever I'm doing wing type shooting, all that kind of stuff. I like to remain target focused and only focused on the front sight. This is a plain barrel model. We do not have any type of any vent rib or even solid rib or anything along those lines. Come back to here, our end of our magazine tube is actually a retainer for the barrel. The barrel on this shotgun is removable. That was not always necessarily a thing up until, well, the 870 and models that came after it. Now, ostensibly, this is so that, especially since you have fixed choke tubes, you could trade in different choked barrels or have different lengths and all that kind of stuff. However, barrels are kind of expensive, and I don't really know that many people who have like a repertoire of different barrels for their particular shotgun. You might have one or two, you know, whatever it is that came with the gun, and then maybe you want like an 18-inch barreled one for home defense, or perhaps you want a slug barrel, something along those lines. I'm sure somebody out there does, but I can't imagine too many people necessarily flocked out and bought like a modified choke and a improved cylinder choke barrel, or a 20, you know, I've got a 28, but now I need a 26 full choke or something along those lines. I would be surprised to see a lot of that going on. What I think is great about the removable barrel is that it makes it a lot easier to A, make this more compact for storage, and then B, take down for cleaning. Those are the things that I like about this particular innovation. It's definitely something that we kind of take for granted today in more modern shotguns. Now, we do have a 4-shot magazine tube. One of the updates that the 870 brought in is dual action bars, which is supposed to keep you from potentially being able to twist the handguard during functioning, which could induce a malfunction of some sort. I never had that be an issue on anything older like this Model 31. See here, singular action bar. But I mean, I guess having it exist doesn't necessarily add any like weight or anything like that, and for sure you're not necessarily going to cause the shotgun to malfunction that way. So I guess it's neither here nor there. You can of course find these with extended magazine tubes and all that kind of stuff. You can get aftermarket stuff, or you can buy models that already have 8-shot tubes on them and all that kind of stuff. Now our handguard is kind of this rat tail, I guess, form factor to it. It's rather thin. We'll talk about that more in shooting as well. This is a 2 3/4 inch chambered shotgun. 16 gauge isn't made in anything but 2 3/4 or shorter, so this does not necessarily, you'll never find a 16 gauge shotgun with a 3-inch chamber. You can of course get this shotgun in 3-inch chambers. All right, let's talk about our receiver real quick. And in general, the bluing. The bluing and the wood are two of the biggest differences between this and a Remington 870 Express. As you can see here, we have this very matte finish on this particular shotgun. We have chrome finish on the bolt. This is most definitely not. And then also the wood. This is a much higher grade wood on this particular shotgun. Right now, we do have a little bit of checkering on top of here to be able to reduce glare on top of our receiver. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about some of our functioning pieces and parts. So our slide release is located here at the front of the trigger guard, which is not my favorite location, primarily because I have to break my grip in order to be able to get to it. Now, a couple things to go along with that. This is more of an administrative function whenever it is that you're using this. So it's probably not that big a deal that I have to break my grip here in order to be able to action it. Now, this is definitely something that you could put off to the side in like a home defense type situation. You can go ahead and kind of have this cruiser ready. So go ahead, depress that lever, have the shotgun loaded up in the magazine, no round in the chamber, so that if you do need it for some reason, you can rack it and get to work. That is an option that you have available, and then that kind of nullifies the whole issue with this being placed forward. Now, our safety is located to the rear of the trigger guard, which is not my favorite location, and that's primarily because I have to bring my grip back this far so that I'm able to rest my finger on the safety to be able to flick it off and be able to get into action. I don't care for that. I prefer to come back to the trigger instead of have to move forward and then come back onto it, in addition to having to break up my grip here on the actual stock itself. That's something I don't particularly care for. Now, something else about these trigger guards on the Wingmasters, this is a metal trigger guard. However, it is plastic on the Express. So another little difference there for you. All right, now you'll see we have a semi-pistol grip, which is my preferred for shotguns and rifles so that I can better pull it into my shoulder, as well as it also gives it better structural integrity. And then we have a plastic butt cap here on the older shotguns. Newer shotguns will come with a rubber butt pad. And then, of course, you can swap in all kinds of different aftermarket extensions or spacers, whatever it is that you need for recoil management if you're shooting heavier loads like you can in that particular shotgun. That shotgun is 3.5-inch chamber. All right, guys, that's pretty much features. How does it shoot? This shotgun is an absolute joy to shoot. Even though it's super long, it's incredibly difficult to get into the camera lens here. It's extremely long. It's kind of like walking around with a javelin and all that kind of stuff. But it is very quick to the shoulder. It has excellent weight distribution and all that kind of stuff. Now, weight is an interesting conversation with the Remington Model 870s. This particular shotgun comes in at 6 pounds. Now, normally we would expect that a 16 gauge or even a 20 gauge shotgun will be lighter than a 12 gauge. One of the issues with the 870 though is that all of them are built on a 12 gauge frame. So this shotgun, being a 12 gauge and a 3.5-inch chamber and all that kind of stuff, weighs 6.2 pounds. So there's 0.2 pounds difference between these two guns. That's kind of a miss. This shotgun can be much lighter. Now, if you're looking for a super lightweight 16 gauge shotgun, at that point, you might start considering a Remington Model 31 or perhaps an Ithaca 37. Now, it doesn't change the fact that this shotgun balances beautifully. It tracks very naturally. However, if you're getting into a particularly heavy amount of shooting, this small handguard here can wind up with your fingers coming in contact with the hot barrel. That's kind of a miss. In addition to that, this shotgun stock is a little bit longer than what I normally look for in shotguns. I prefer a little bit shorter stock because it makes it that much faster and easier into my shoulder, especially if I'm wearing layers and all that kind of stuff. It's less likely that I'm going to catch it in my armpit on the way to my shoulder. This gun is just a tad, it's probably more appropriately sized for what I should be looking for whenever sizing a shotgun. However, I find it personally just a little long. My own personal preference thing there. All right, guys, now what do I recommend you use this type of shotgun for? Well, the Wingmasters are kind of the Cadillac of the Remington line when it comes to pump action shotguns. The Express is more of the durable type purpose shotgun, whereas the Wingmaster is something that is supposed to be a little bit more highly polished. Something that somebody who is concerned, I should say, more so or just as equally in looks as performance, the Wingmaster is an excellent option overall. Now, it's unfortunate because the 870 line's been discontinued. Remington's been having a lot of issues lately. Now, as far, especially an older 16 gauge like this particular shotgun, these would be absolutely fantastic, especially at this barrel length. I would call this a good dove gun. This would be great in dove fields. It's a little long and just a tad heavier than I want it to be for doing grouse or any type of heavy brush type hunting, something we're going to be walking around a lot and all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily my go-to option, though this would be fun for pheasant if you were working over some fairly large fields. What do I use this particular shotgun for? Well, I got this to kind of add to my 16 gauge collection. I'm actually a huge fan of the 16 gauge shotgun shell. And the Wingmasters in general just have such an appeal for kind of what they did for shotgun manufacturing. So really, it's kind of a collector's piece. I don't really hunt upland game anymore for the most part, and it's not a home defense shotgun for me by any means. Now, you can, of course, find buckshot and slugs in the 16 gauge loading, and if you have interchangeable choke tubes, you could totally press an 870 into home defense type measures if you wanted to, especially if you got yourself a shorter barrel and had a longer barrel readily available in order to be able to go and do hunting should you see fit. But for me, for the most part, this is just something that I occasionally take out and shoot trap with and have a good time and just enjoy shooting in general. Now, I haven't shot trap in a while either, but I also enjoy taking it out and decimating targets at the pistol range as well. So those are kind of the uses that I get out of this particular shotgun. All right, guys, I think that pretty much covers my thoughts on this particular subject. I hope you guys found this interesting, and that's pretty much what I got. Have a good day.